All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name's Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And as you can see, we are audio only this week. I'm actually out of town this week. Initially, it's going to be just Eric this weekend. However, Eric was sick this weekend. Don't want to give too much info, but so we just don't want the podcast to be several days late. So we thought, hey, might as well do one as opposed to not doing it at all. So anyways, now that we've gotten that out of the way, this week we are going to be talking about what we've been playing in addition to Arc the Lad. There's been some news regarding that release. And then also we have our comments this week. We're going to try to keep this episode a little bit shorter because we're kind of running on last minute here, although I still think it's going to be a very good episode. So let's go ahead and get that started. Eric, what have you been playing this week?
Well, I've been doing the never-ending grind on Octopath for sure, but
Yeah.
What I've actually been playing is actually the first Darksiders game, the War Mastered Edition, and I've been having a blast with it. It was $5 for that and the second game that was on sale on Steam, like bundled together. And I was telling myself, well, you can't beat $5. I technically own the game, but it's on PS3, so I bought it. And I actually got a lot further than I did when I first played it. And I mean, it's just a fantastic game. It's got a mix of Zelda and God of War of it. Like the adventure aspect with Zelda, like in going to dungeons and solving puzzles. And then the combat of like, the more classic God of War games, where it's just like an onslaught of enemies. And I actually think it did a pretty nice blend of it. I will say the game is not entirely original by any means, but it is still very fun. I noticed the game lacked a sense of original concepts when you get a literal portal gun in the game, like this, like almost the same portal gun as from the Portal game from Valve.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a fun thing to play with certainly, but you point it at one like certain marked walls, you point at that and you point at the other, and you jump out to the other side. So I was like, wow, like this this thing is, they're so unapologetic about using ideas from other games, but they still made it work all together, and it's still a solid game. So I highly recommend it. It's very cheap on Steam or PS4 or Xbox. Whichever your preferred platform, it's on all of them, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're someone who likes games like Zelda.
Very cool. So what did you get it on?
I got it on Steam. It was on sale.
That's right. That's what you mentioned. Is that the only place you can get it, or?
No, you can get it on Steam, PS4, Xbox, the first and second game. So
How much was it?
I'm not sure if the deal is still up now, but there was a special bundle that was $5 for both games, and it's their definitive versions.
Decent, dude. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a hell of a deal on that.
Did you? And you said you just been grinding with Octopath?
Yeah, I've admittedly been looking up YouTube videos on more efficient ways to get gold. And I am kind of cheesing it right now with, I found out how to get 5,700 gold pretty much per 1 to 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing compared to what I've been doing.
Yeah.
So I might have to share secrets here.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to do it. It's simply you go to the Undertale cave, or there's this other place also. So if you go anywhere, it's like a level 45 to 50 area, use maneuver, have Tressa in your party, and use the abilities that really lower your encounter rate and able to escape when you do get battles. And you keep running around the level 45 area for a few minutes, or the level 51. I'm doing the level 51. And you run around for like a minute or two, and then you walk outside to the exit, and like poof, like you get 5,700. Granted, the one I'm doing, you have to hit certain parts like right before you get to a boss. It's like, do you want to fight the boss? You're like, no. And it resets the counter. So you keep running again, you go back to it, and you come out and you get the max amount of gold you would for your exploration rate. And you just keep doing it over and over.
Jeez. That sounds awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've still been doing the stereotypical run in a circle and just grind in a good spot. I have noticed some of the locations are a little bit better for like rewards than others. Um, and the first time I noticed this was actually originally I was trying to grind outside of Old Barracks Town. This was like a week ago, and then later I found Primrose's area. Those enemies to actually be easier, and they gave like 4 times as much gold, but still they were not giving 5,700. So, um, yeah, I guess it's just finding those secrets out. With me this week, I've just primarily been playing Octopath Traveler as well, doing the same thing as you, just trying to get some more gold. Not too exciting on that front. I've been traveling this week. I thought I was going to be able to get more time in, but I've actually than I did this past week, which I think I got like good 15 hours in the previous week, but I actually got less than that this week. Even though I was traveling, just because yeah, I'm out with family and stuff, and people are talking to me, and it's hard to focus. But this was the first time that I was able to, or I felt comfortable anyway, taking my Switch on the road up to actually onto an airplane, and trying to do the whole thing through the airport. And yeah, man, that was real cool, because usually what I do on a plane flight is I'll just listen to a podcast, or I'll try to play a phone game. But being able to take on my Switch onto an airplane and play Breath of the Wild and Octopath Traveler, it was pretty cool. I kept having people looking at me. The guy next to me, he looked over and saw Octopath Traveler's artwork, and he was like, "Whoa, that's like old school," and he was like kind of talking to me about it. So it was kind of cool. But
Man, you had like those ideal Switch, those like Switch commercials where it's like people you don't know just come around. They're like, "Whoa, that's really cool. What's that?" Like
yeah.
you just had one of those moments.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I did not take it. Well, fortunately, I did not take it to a bar or like a park.
Oh
We didn't
man,
have.
I would not be caught dead with my Switch in those areas, man.
Yeah, dude, I was nervous about taking my Switch on the plane because I had yet to get any kind of casing for the screen. But I picked that up the day before I left and stuck it on. And one thing I was concerned about too was the battery life. I was really concerned that I was going to run out of battery life, so I got like an external battery to kind of tide me over, and I ended up not even needing it. So, I mean, I wasn't playing Breath of the Wild most of the time. I was primarily playing Octopath Traveler, and I had it on the lower end settings, as far as like lighting and everything like that. So,
Yeah.
that probably helped out a lot. But, if you try to look up online, how long does the Switch last, not connected? It looks like most of the tests were done with Breath of the Wild, which is kind of stupid because, that's not, obviously that's not going to last as long as Octopath, I would assume anyways. But yeah, man, I had that thing going for like at least 4.5 hours and it wasn't dead yet. So
Yeah, especially if you put on airplane mode
yeah,
and
that's
check
what I
the
did.
screen brightness. I mean, you can get a good amount out of it. And I mean, the Switch is a great travel companion, but like we were joking about earlier, I'm always kind of scared to take it. I always have it in the case, and when I take it out, I make sure there's nothing that could, damage it. I mean, I'm very fickle about my products. Like
Yeah.
my Game Boy up there that I have hanging up, it's still the
Oh,
original one from when I was little. Like my first Game Boy, it's like up there, and it's still in great condition. You can turn it on, and it plays just fine.
oh wow.
Yeah, no
See, I don't.
corrosion and nothing.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of, well, not, this isn't really a habit anymore, but like my Game Boy, I have no idea where it went. My Game Boy Color. I was trying to look for it the other day, and I was like, I don't remember giving this thing away, but I can't find it. I had a Neo Geo Pocket Color. That thing was awesome. Don't know what happened to that one, but that's cool that you still have your old stuff and it's in great condition.
Oh yeah, I mean, not to rub it in to you, but I still have my Neo Geo up
Yeah,
there in its box.
yeah. Well, it's crazy because I still have a lot of the games for it. I just don't have the system, so that makes me feel like it was stolen over the years or something. But yeah, I was eyeing one at a pawn shop the other day. I think it was like $50, and I was like, ooh. I want to buy that, but I don't know. If I remember correctly, the screen isn't backlit, so that kind of irritates me.
Well, you can custom build one.
Or I could just emulate it.
Yeah. I mean,
know?
if you want to do it the not fun way.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Maybe one of these days, but that sounds like a lot of work.
It's not too bad. You essentially got to replace the screen, and that's about it.
I don't know. So you just pull the screen off and like, what do you do?
Well, there's a lot of wiring to it, but you take the screen off and you put the custom built screen in it. This is popular mostly in the Game Boy Advance, like the first model one. You can take the screen out and you can insert it in it, or you could buy one from someone who does it, and it'll be the same Game Boy Advance except it has a backlight.
I don't know. Like anytime I like popping stuff off and like do I have to solder anything?
No, you shouldn't have to.
I don't know. Well, I'll figure this out later and I'll let you all know. But I don't even own one anymore, so probably not. But
it could be a fun little $30 experiment. You can get like a Game Boy Advance for like $20 or so.
Yeah, just kind of backlight it. I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, this guy at my school, he read how to do this online, but he bought a Nintendo 64, and then he bought like a portable TV, and then he took all the insides out of the Nintendo 64 and like stuck them in like a Koran box, and then like he had it connected to a portable television, and he had a portable Nintendo 64, and he, it took like, I think it took like a crazy amount of Duracell D batteries, but I remember lots of projects like that. It was pretty cool though. I think it only ran for like an hour and a half, but it was pretty wild back in the day.
Nice.
But anyways, Eric, I know you messaged me about this Arc the Lad information.
Yes.
I know you're very excited about this. So you want to fill us in on what exactly has been presented?
Yeah. Oh, excited and slightly disappointed at the same time. But we kind of knew what was coming out of it. We were just being hopeful. But it is a new Arc the Lad game. I guess a legitimate one, and it does take place after the second game, and it is called Arc the Lad R. I'm not sure what the R stands for, but it is a new title. It is coming for mobile platforms. It's only has a Japan release date right now. I'm not sure. I don't think there is a scheduled date, but they've only announced it for Japan right now. Hopefully it'll come in America. But essentially, it is, like I said, a sequel to Arc the Lad 2, and it's going to star new characters, and also, from what I see from the screenshots, old characters returning also. Like I saw Tosh, Poco, Elk. I think I saw Iga in there also, and I mean, everything looks great. Like the presentation looks really cool. The art, they did change artists for it pretty dramatically. Like it looks kind of like a mix of Bravely Default and Alliance Alive, how the sprites look and how the character art is, which I found pretty interesting. I mean, it's different, but at the same time it feels welcoming. I like the art style, so it's pretty cool how they modernized the series more for it. And I mean, graphically it looks extremely impressive. Like, this is something I wish more mobile titles looked like. It looks like something that you would find in a really high-end 3DS title, or something even arguably on the Switch. And from what I also saw, the battle system looks just like it did like during Arc the Lad 2. I'm sure there's gonna be some enhancements and the battle system being refined, but it does look like more or less the same. Now, the part where I said it was disappointing is where it is a free-to-play game, and it will have microtransactions in it, but they didn't really delve into
how it's going
to work. So that part worries me. but at the same time, this does look like a legit Art the Lad game, and I do want to at least play it or try it. So I really hope they localize it. I mean, almost every Art the Lad game's been localized. So hopefully this one will too, and I'm not sure how sales have been for it, but I mean, it's just me being hopeful for it. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. If you're a fan of the series like I am, and look into it, I know it says free to play on it, but I think this is one we could give a chance. I know we were just ripping on mobile titles the other week, but I mean, if the quality shows, then I think it's at least worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, do we know, as far as you said, it's free to play, or it's not going to cost anything initially?
Yeah, at least the Japanese structure is free to play.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was watching the trailer. They have a couple of trailers online, kind of showcasing some stuff with the game, and like you said, artistically, it does look really well done. At first, I thought it was going to be like a kind of a chibi look, which I'm not a big fan of, but it kind of seems like it walks a gray area between almost being like that, but not quite. But it looks like it has a nice pixel touch to it, or pixel art touch to it, which I really, really like, kind of mixed with some high def backgrounds. So it looks really good. I mean, like you said, microtransactions, that kind of gives me pause, but we'll have to see. Generally speaking, any game that has microtransactions, I can't think any off the top of my head where I was like, oh, well, that was okay. It didn't bother me. Unless it's just cosmetics, I don't know. But we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
Terra Battle, I think, is probably the one true free-to-play mobile game that I didn't feel like the microtransactions were really imposed on me. Like, that game was so, like, even to this day, that game is so generous with giving you stamina and, like, the little energy to restore it, that, you know, I never had to spend a dime on that game to beat it.
Yeah. So that might be the one exception. So hopefully it's in that vein. But I am interested to find out if we're going to get an actual release over here in the States, because that's, that's one of those things where I feel like it would be very difficult to, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it'd be very difficult to be able to get an English, for like a fan translation of this game, if it's only released in Japan on mobile. I'm not quite sure if the prospects of us ever actually getting to play it,
Yeah, and we just gotta hope for our best. Hopefully someone who cares enough and has connection to Sony can get ask them and say, hey, will this ever make West Side? And I'm thinking maybe if the sales are great enough, or like it's being successful in Japan, that they might bring it to America. But if it's not successful in Japan, they'll be like, well, if it's not working here, it sure won't work over in the West.
Yeah, but the thing is, as far as we know, it's all text based. It's not voice acted, right?
As far as we know, and I think even if they did, I think even if it does, then they probably wouldn't localize the voice acting. They would probably just localize the text.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb here and say it's probably not voice acted, which is fine. I actually prefer that. And if that's the case, I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult to localize it. If it's just, I mean, I say that casually. Obviously, you got to go through, and there's more to localization than just translation. However, I mean, if it's just text, that's significantly easier than, at least in terms of cash flow, trying to hire all these actors and make sure you have a director there that can kind of navigate each scene accordingly. I mean, if you just have text, you can just have one person localize it, or one or two people localize it, or even a team. I'm sure there's teams out there that specialize in that, and you can just have them do it. And I think they'd only have money to make. And so, yeah, I don't see any reason not to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind at all if they don't bring in English voice actors. Hypothetically speaking, if there is voice acting. So, that doesn't bother me at all. I just want to see a continuation of this. The one thing that strikes me odd, though, is that it does take place after Octopath 2, but Octopath 3 also takes place, like, roughly 10 years after Octopath 2. And I look at, like, all these cities and everything, like, everything looks pretty great. And Octopath 3, like, there's an ending in Octopath 2 where I'm trying to not spoil it, but the way 3 is set up, this game feels kind of inconsistent with that. So I'm kind of wondering what's going on here, or if they just decided to make Octopath 3 not canon. Because, like, the characters look very different from that also. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, regardless, I just want this game.
Yeah, I'm reading an article that the the Lad series has sold more. It says more than 3.7 million units worldwide. So that's pretty good for that series. However, that's it's still got a very niche following. So I'm going to be interested. Yeah, I'm going to be very, very interested to see if this comes out in the States, because I think especially on mobile, that's probably the prime spot. I can't believe I'm saying that, but that would be the prime spot, I think, for them to capture some ground in the West. Is just, man, hey, mobile. I think it would get the most exposure there. Or, I mean, unless they did like a full-on Switch release, which I don't see, but anyways.
Yeah, I think what actually made Octopath sell decently well over in the West is when the PS1 version came out, like, they didn't just release each game individually. We got the entire package. We got Octopath 1, Octopath 2, and its Monster Arena expansion, and Octopath 3. It was all in one box, and it was in one of those pretty big boxes. Like, the one that, like, Lunar had, the one you just bought recently. Yeah, it had a box like that, and I can tell you, that box is just the packaging alone is very appealing to people. Like, it was definitely appealing to me. I was like, whoa, this is a nice big box, and I'm sure it's like full of games I want to play. And it had 3 full titles in it.
See, that's the way to go. I mean, that way you can really just get people hooked on the series. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like I said, no release date for the West yet. If you can read Japanese, it's coming out pretty soon from what they say. You can pre-order it now, I think. I don't know why you pre-order digital games, but I mean, it's available to do, I guess.
Yeah, that's always struck me as odd that you would pre-order a digital game. Like, are you planning on running out? So I don't know. But very, very cool. I'm definitely looking forward to this. So we'll have to see. I'm seeing if there's anything else in here worth bringing up.
Yeah, trust me, if there's any more information in this game, I'll be glad to let you all know immediately.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised with how much they did show the game, because when they initially announced that, hey, on July 30th, they're going to show X, Y, and Z about this game, I thought it was just going to be basically like maybe a little article with like a few screenshots. I didn't expect 2 trailers, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to hearing more information about this.
Yeah, it is Sony. Well, unless there's something else I don't know about, but this is Sony's like first real attempt at the mobile market, and surprisingly enough, it's Octopath of all series to for them to go in for. So I think they're gonna probably go all guns blazing in and try to get some same success as Nintendo is with their franchises hitting mobile.
Are you going to be tempted at all to do any of the microtransactions if you find out they're...
No.
Because you're such a big fan of the game, you're not going to be tempted at all?
No, I'll stick to my guns. I will not purchase microtransactions. I've never had before. I don't plan to now.
Okay, we'll have to see. I know you're a big Arc the Lad fan, and I would say you're probably only a bigger Dragon Quest fan. So,
Yeah.
um, so cool, very cool. So, let's move on here. We got a bunch of comments last week. It looks like a bunch of people were wanting to reach out and make sure Eric has some stuff to uh, answer here. Some of it's actually, well, all of it's very, very good, but some of it's actually made me pause and think. But let's jump right into it. First one's easy one. Rye the guy. He says he's liking these podcasts. There isn't enough RPG podcasts. Appreciate that.
Really? There's not much RPG podcasts out there?
Well, I mean, of note, only the Phoenix Edge RPG podcast, you know,
Yeah.
of course. But very, very cool. Thanks, Rye. Thanks for listening here. Then we have Cody Merle. I think that's how you say it. But he says, question for Eric. Since you know the Dragon Quest series backwards and forwards, I'm the same age as you guys, and though I would consider myself a highly seasoned JRPG veteran. I missed out on Dragon Quest IV through a 6 entirely. Shameful, I know. If you had to pick one of those that I missed, for now at least, which one should I complete? I feel like I need to play them for historical completion's sake, but highly doubtful I can crank through all three anytime soon. I will probably buy the physical copy of DS/3DS since I also collect. For clarity, I have completed 1 through 3 and 7 through 9, but not the newer version of 7 on the 3DS, so I guess that could be an option too. Thanks for delivering great content and looking forward to more Octopath discussions, coverage of Dragon Quest XI later in the year. I saw you responded to this comment, but if you want to go ahead and talk about that on here, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I was tempted to answer it just because, you know, me being a Dragon Quest fan and all. But
yeah, you could,
I essentially said that each of the games are really good. Each one brings something interesting to the table. Like Dragon Quest IV is a story of multiple characters, and about halfway through the game, they all join together for a common cause. And they actually did a really good job of that story structure. They managed to make each character interesting, and you wanted to follow through on what their goals are in the story. And then you have Dragon Quest V, where it's like a generation type game where you're going through and seeing the world as like 1/3 of the game a child, the second third of it a like older teenager, and then like the third you're an adult slash well, essentially, yeah, you're an adult in the third generation of it, and you are ultimately like on a quest to search for the legendary hero, and that is personally my favorite of the three, and that's the one I highly recommended because, I mean, if you want one that has a good balance of story and gameplay that Dragon Quest is known for, 5 is definitely like a good starter pickup.
Yeah,
title.
we actually did a discussion on Dragon Quest V back in December. We did a full hour and a half or however long episode on that, and that was my first time playing that game. I played maybe a few hours of the Super Nintendo version, and then I jumped to the DS version. And it was a very, very good version. I really, really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed that game. Honestly, it was a very, very good game. So,
yeah,
I haven't played Dragon Quest 4 or 6, so I can't really compare to those. But Dragon Quest 5 was very, very good.
Yeah, definitely watch that episode after you complete it. I mean, I had fun talking about it that episode. And then Dragon Quest 6 is like I said, it's like the oddball of the series, but it's still good. It's a tale of traveling through a dimension, like between an alternate version of the same world, and it's interesting how you have to do things in one place to get a reaction out of the other. And it may sound complex describing it, but it's actually pretty simple. As long as you're just like following dialogue, you know essentially where to go next or what to do. And it does have a pretty good story also. It has a pretty neat plot twist, one that you might be able to predict like halfway through the game, but like it does have a pretty nice one. And like I said, there is, just in my eyes, I think all the Dragon Quest games are great in their own way. I can't say anything about 10 because I haven't played that one, but Dragon Quest 1 through 9 are all solid titles. You really can't go wrong. But between those three, 5 is my personal favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I want to agree to that, but like I said, full disclosure, I have not played 4 or 6, but I know that that's a pretty popular opinion that 5 is really, really good. So
don't worry, we'll work on it.
Yeah, eventually, well, obviously, we got Dragon Quest 11 coming out soon, so that'll probably be the next Dragon Quest I jump into. So it might be all downhill after that. We'll have to see. But anyways, we got Bio Phoenix. Always good to hear from him. He's talking about our discussion last week on emulation with Nintendo's $100 million lawsuit. He says, as someone that uses emulation and embraces it, Nintendo does have the right to do it. And while it sucks, I kind of get it. But at the same time, there's so many sites and many ways to get ROMs. But hopefully Love ROMs changes the layout of their site at least. I agree for old games, it's free game, but newer games, then they should get taken down off sites. Then he goes on to talk about the Atari box a tiny bit. But yeah, man, I totally agree. I mean, I think there's probably some room to say, okay, maybe certain older games, maybe, I guess, in certain circumstances. But in general, I feel like Nintendo has a lot more to gain by not, making themselves look ridiculous in, the media by these outrageous suits. Now, in that one case with Love ROMs, where they're actually crafting their website to make it look like it was made by Nintendo, that was just stupid. But the other website that was not doing that, that was kind of dumb, I think, for Nintendo to do that. I think they've probably hurt their image more than the amount of money they would have made. By anyone that wants to emulate these games will probably find it somewhere else. So but
yeah, Nintendo's pretty famous for doing this though, so it's nothing surprising to me. I believe it was asked in there also, like, the definite, like, what's considered, what I think is okay to emulate or not okay to emulate.
That was actually a later
comment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, I agree. The layout was probably a little too bold on their end, especially if they're making money off ad revenue.
Yeah, and especially if you live in Arizona in the United States, where we have very strict laws against that type of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he also says the Atari box really does seem like it's going to be like the Ouya, where people are going to buy it just to hack it. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of comparisons with that, and I totally agree. That seems like the only real perk to getting an Atari VCS is the ability to hack it.
I think they're counting on that.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't say a hack, because hack would imply that you're doing something that they don't want you to do. It's supposedly, I think it's being designed from the ground up for you to be able to do that. So, but yeah, same thing, same difference. People that are going to buy that system are likely going to get the most enjoyment out of it if you like trying to run your own stuff off the system. That seems kind of be like the market they're going for. So totally agree, as usual. Then we have Jam Gamecast. He says, a great episode regarding the Atari VCS. I agree with Eric. It does have a very Ouya feel to it. I will probably wait to buy one and maybe get one cheaper on the secondary market. Thanks again for coming on our podcast. What was it, 2 episodes ago? Really good time. But yeah, I totally agree. As far as, again, with the reference there to the Ouya, but as far as getting one on the secondary market, man, you're a bold guy there. What about you, Eric? Would you buy one on the used market?
The Atari?
Yeah.
VCS? I don't know, because I mean, there's been a couple like attempts at like a retro revival of something. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there was like some like ColecoVision revival thing, and now I see they have what was it, like a Commodore 64 type revival also thing coming out. And I don't know, these things just kind of come and go all the time. I don't think the Atari VCS is going to be anything special. I certainly didn't pick up a Ouya So chances are I may not pick this up either.
Yeah, I
If
guess
I ever get a Ouya, that's like way down the line when I have absolutely nothing left to collect, which will probably never happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously for us to give, and he's not asking here. He's just saying what what he would do. But obviously, at least with me, I feel like for me to be able to choose whether or not I would get one on the secondary market would be once I hear more information about it. But with that said, I'm very, very confident I would not buy this. So the only thing I could see me buying one for is if maybe I wanted to make a YouTube video or something, and I was like, "Hey guys, I got an Atari VCS. Let's check it out." But I'm probably not going to do that. So don't hold your breath. But I'm probably not going to pick one up unless I start seeing a lot of great games coming out of it. Then that'll get my interest. But yep, totally agree with your comments there. Then we have Dude McGuy. He said, "Good episode. It was a great listen. I have a question regarding the emulation discussion. You said you'd be against emulation of a game like Breath of the Wild because it is a current game / currently for sale. But this seems like a very gray area with how many games are now sold digitally on multiple platforms. For example, Final Fantasy IX is still currently for sale on the PlayStation Store and Steam, but that isn't the exact same version of Final Fantasy IX that was released on the PS1. With games now sold digitally, aren't they all currently for sale forever? Assuming Steam and PlayStation Store, the PS Store, or some version of them are still up in the future. Another example you brought up was Super Mario World, which can be purchased on the Wii U Virtual Console or as part of the SNES Classic. It's true that these versions of the game are not perfectly emulating the actual SNES cartridge bit for bit, but it's so close to the original that it can't really be considered a different game, in my opinion. Couldn't Nintendo consider the SNES Classic and Virtual Console their Steam-like service and therefore consider Super Mario World still currently for sale? I'm guessing this is the logic that they do use, which is why they go after these ROM sites so aggressively. Anyway, that is probably Nintendo's logic, which they may or may not have a good legal case for, but what do you consider currently for sale games, and when does that period end? Is it when the physical console or a game is no longer produced? What if a game was only released digitally on Steam? Would emulation of that game never be fair as long as it is still available on Steam?
Okay, well,
before I went out of town, but go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Okay, I know I sound a little complex saying this, but essentially what my idea is essentially if the company is no longer making money off that particular product, then I say fair game. Now, we can use Super Mario World as an example since you brought it up. Is okay. The original Super Nintendo cartridge, if someone emulates that Super Nintendo cartridge that Nintendo doesn't make anymore, I say that's very fair game. So they don't make no money off of it anymore. If it is the virtual console of Super Mario World that has, let's say it has like some things that are added to it, like the save and like the personal save and load state, or there's some crazy Nintendo feature that, you know, that it's not part of the game, but it's like some part of it, and say you can emulate it. I think that is where like I would draw the line for it, because Nintendo is making money off that digital version of Super Mario World. So yeah, when if they're making money off that, but they're not making money off the original Super Nintendo copy, then I say that's fair game. It's as simple as that. And like with Final Fantasy IX, like they're not making money off the physical PS1 versions anymore. They're making money off the digital version and the PC enhanced version. So if you emulate that PS1 version, I think that's fair game. It is a very gray area though, because you ask yourself, "Oh, what's the difference?" or something like that. And I really wouldn't get up on anyone for doing that. That's a very gray area one. If you just emulate like say Sony's PSN version.
Yeah, because what if you just upscale Final Fantasy IX, the PlayStation 1 version? Okay, of course you're not getting the the cheats or whatever that the game offers, and some other little perks. But all in all, like I think he pointed out here, like it's more like the original than it is different. So I said, but
Yeah,
I do agree with you. It is a gray area because that was a very good question, honestly, because to me, like I don't feel like when they re-release these games 20 years later, like I don't feel like, I mean, obviously they're selling that game, but to me, that's not really the product that they're advertising. What they're advertising is convenience. The SNES Classic, you could have gotten all those games for free, like buying them or downloading the ROM. But so many people did not do that. They went and bought the SNES Classic because they wanted the convenience of being able to just play it on their TV. All they got to do is hook it up and they can just play it. They can play it with their friends. You don't have to crowd around your computer. You don't have to do any crazy stuff to try to play it. You don't have to go to some weird website and hope it doesn't give you a virus. You don't have to worry about it freezing halfway through the game. I mean, it's all about convenience to me. So I know that they're selling basically the same game with some visual updates, maybe some other perks, but to me, like the product itself has dramatically changed. They're if you download the ROM, you're to me it's just a different experience. So I mean that's my biggest thing. I mean I think I pointed out also here that because I actually replied to this one before I went out of town, but um, I mean, I think I pointed out right here. I said Nintendo would try to generally are not reselling the game. Otherwise, Nintendo would try to go after every used game store on the planet to try to stop them from selling SNES games for $3, which is in direct conflict with their SNES Classic sales. Or allow cheaper third-party versions of SNES as consoles that can play these games in a higher definition. I mean, obviously, it's a different topic entirely with people selling used games as opposed to someone actually downloading a ROM because initially someone bought the game. But when you have somebody that uh, bought a used, let's say Final Fantasy VI, which was Final Fantasy III here in the States, if somebody bought that game initially back in the 90s and then they sold it on eBay and then that person sold it to a used game store and that used game store sold it somewhere else and then that person sold it on Craigslist. I mean, you got like six different people that have like handed this game off and Nintendo is not making money on any of these sales. So to me, when you look at something like that and then you compare it to emulation, it's very similar because they're not making any money off of it. And that's why I would argue that emulation largely when you stick it just to like let's say SNES or maybe 15 year anything that's not currently for sale, I think it helps Nintendo more than it hurts it for people to be able to go and do this. Like I said, I don't think Nintendo should be like posting links on their website to ROM sites or they should be hosting them on their own website. Obviously, that could get them in a bit of a pickle later if they decided, for whatever reason, they wanted to hamper down on it. But I mean, I don't think they should be going after them like they are.
oh, yeah, that's a fight Nintendo's never going to win. And Nintendo's legal team has always been pretty sketchy over the years, even dating all the way back to the early 90s. So like I said, it's not surprising they do that. But it is essentially a losing battle. And like I said, it's that they have nothing to gain from taking these sites down. I mean, you can't fight the emulation scene. And even though we're speaking hypotheticals of like someone downloading like the virtual console version, most people don't do that. They just get the Super Nintendo version and they use like the enhancements from the emulation tool itself to make it look better or play better. The ROM community pretty much gets together and makes enhancements themselves to these games.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it takes a fair amount of time, I would say, before you can actually. From my experience, it takes a while before you can actually emulate games from a system. Like I think I tried emulating a 3DS game like 6 months ago on my computer, and it ran, but it ran poorly. right? Because they're still working out the emulator and like the game, and like there's all sorts of issues that where the community was still figuring out. And I'm sure, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, the emulator is going to be great. Pretty much any game you can think of will run basically well enough to enjoy it. But right now, it just doesn't work that well. Some people are willing to like tough it out, but general to me, it's much easier to just like I said, that convenience factor of going to buy the game and buy the 3DS. So I mean, I think kind of like just the fact of like how technology moves kind of puts a filter on, or at least a band-aid on how much it's actually hurting Nintendo. Because by the time people like can actually emulate these games, generally speaking, you know, Nintendo's onto bigger and better things. So
Yeah. If I
I
could
don't know.
also argue against Nintendo doing this, is that there's a lot of games that they probably have not archived over the years. And it is, I mean, not just Nintendo, several other companies have probably like lost the files to everything for the games that they've made. So it's hard to re-release them. But guess who is preserving these? And that is the community, and they are keeping these games alive through ROMs that their parent company who made it are not doing. So I think I think also on that level, I don't think it's right to just straight out attack these people, especially when we're not making money off these particular products anymore. But but on the other hand, I mean, we can all agree that the fine line is definitely like not what they're releasing right now. Like Breath of the Wild, like people downloading Breath of the Wild right now, like for
Yeah.
free. Yeah, that's definitely where I draw the line. You should definitely be purchasing that game, not pirating it.
Yeah, and see in situations like that where okay, like the Wii U came out because it's they're pirating the Wii U version, right? Like I haven't seen anywhere where people have been emulating any Switch games that I know of, because it's such a new console. So that's kind of like a gray area too, because it's like, well, the Wii U has been out for a while now, so people are actually able to do that, but that's a current game because it's kind of both consoles. So yeah, I do think emulating Breath of the Wild, that is an example of where I think emulation probably has hurt it a little bit. But hey, Breath of the Wild has been like the best selling game for Nintendo in a long time, I think. So,
Yeah, and I know the reason people pirate these more modern games is because spending $60 on a game nowadays is very risky, and there is a pretty heavy ratio of good to bad games right now. So I don't necessarily blame people who really don't want to spend the $60. I don't condone the action, but I understand it. So I think companies really, for people who are in that particular situation, I really think companies should go out of their way to try to make some kind of like opening demo. Like, you know how like Octopath, you could play the first 3 hours.
mhm.
I thought that was a pretty successful uh tactic on Square Enix's end. I really think companies should embrace that more. Be like, you can play the first 2 or 3 hours of this game, or like the first half hour, depending on how long the game is. Like if it's a 10-hour game, I'm sure they don't want to give you 3 hours of it, but enough of the taste of the game that you know that it would be worth a $60 purchase. And I think that piracy would lower just slightly on that. I know that's not. I know people just want to just have free stuff, like no matter
Yeah,
how no matter how good the game is. But I think that is one thing they could do.
I totally agree with that. And I mean, I'll just point out real quick, like obviously I think there's a small part of the emulation scene, like people that actually own, let's say, Breath of the Wild, but they just want to enhance the version, play with save states or like whatever. Maybe I know there's all sorts of things you can do to make it a higher uh, frame rate throughout the entire game. Whatever, totally get that. I totally get if that's you, do that to your heart's content. But I do agree that man, Nintendo, like and any other company, they got to recognize the market and realize like things are just changing. I mean, if you kind of compare this to music, back when if anybody here who's around my age or older, and Eric's age, Napster used to be a thing where you could just download music and there's all sorts of bands that tried to sue Napster, like Metallica and a couple other bands, and they were really hurt by that. And I'm not saying like Napster was fine, but people were going about it the wrong way. Instead of adapting to the market, they were just trying to, punish people. But once companies started to kind of adapt to this whole like new age of music, you have things like Amazon, where you have, if you're an Amazon Prime user, you can also sign up for their music gig, and it's totally easy to just stream stuff, and the artist still gets money. It might not be as much money as it used to be, but it is something. And there's all sorts of other things out there that artists are getting money on. I mean, if you go and listen to an album on YouTube, and YouTube's flagged that for being whatever, the Rolling Stones. If you put a Rolling Stones album on there, it says YouTube says, "Hey, this is a Rolling Stones album. These people own these songs." Well, if an ad pops up before the YouTube video, who do you think's getting the ad money? It's the people that own the album. So the market adapted to this new age of music, and like I don't know what they're gonna have to do, but I think like Dude McGuy said, and a couple other people said, and we've said it too, is just there's so many ROMs out there, like they can't get rid of them. It's not going away. It's always going to be there. Going after it just makes you look silly. They just have to find a way to adapt to it. And like you said, I start doing things like offering you to play 2 or 3 hours of the game, really put your confidence in your product and say, hey, this is a good game. We're willing to let you try it, because after this 3 to 5 hours, you're going to want to buy it. Like, you can't just keep operating like it's 1995. You got to realize it's 2018. So, and that's really perplexing to me, is because Nintendo has always been very revolutionary in the way they approach game systems, right? Like the Wii was a revolutionary thing, because it was no longer competing in the graphics market. It was competing in the fun market. And they came along with the Switch and did it again. So it kind of boggles my mind that when it comes to like the concept of a digital games, that they can be so dense. But maybe they have some other plans. I don't know. But I'm sure this will all get wrapped up here sooner or later. So
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. But like I said, you're just never gonna win, Nintendo. You can keep fighting, but you ain't gonna win. And and I say this as someone who, as a teenager, teenagers never have that much money. I mean, I used to pirate new games and stuff, so maybe maybe be a little hypocritical when I say stuff like that. As an adult now with a job, but it's I will say I don't condone like the actions of people downloading like Breath of the Wild, but I'm not Nintendo. I don't. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't care what you do. That's their problem, not mine. So if you want to pirate it, then that's between you and Nintendo.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's way easier for me personally, because I do have a job, to just go buy the game and then stick it in my Switch and just play it, as opposed to me trying to find a non-shady website to download it and then read forum posts to figure out the correct settings. And so anyways, good question, Dude McGuy. We probably could have made that a topic in of itself at the get-go, but we really appreciate that comment. Then we have Patrick J. He said, good response to my post about Final Fantasy 16's director. Thanks, guys. I agree, Yoshida staying as producer, but letting someone else direct 14 might happen. I'll write shorter comments in the future. I got a bit carried away with the details in my last two. First off, Patrick J., don't worry about writing long comments. We like both short and long comments, so don't worry about that. But yeah, I mean, seems like he appreciated our response to his point last week. If you remember correctly, he was suggesting that possibly Yoshida could be currently working on Final Fantasy 16, or possibly in the future. And we were kind of like, well, maybe, but I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, you had some pretty good insight there yourself. So it did make me think about like my thoughts about it. So feel free to make the long comments. We'll give you a long answer.
Yep. Then we got Leanne B. I believe Leanne is a girl. I feel safe saying that. But she says, well, they ain't lying. So she's pointing to a point in our conversation last week where we're talking about Octopath Traveler and how hard it is to get money. And then Eric points out that some people have said that later in the game, like you get money so easily that it's never a problem and they have so much left over. So she's just saying, well, they ain't lying. I'm 65 hours in, and right now I'm seeing at 1.4 million with the best weapons and gear for all 8 people. To be honest, for the last couple of days, I've just been throwing my money at enemies in battle by hiring the most expensive mercenaries, 3K per turn if I'm not mistaken. One word, Tressa. Between her collectability and picking up random money for every half a mile you walk will make you richer than your wildest imagination. That girl is broken. Um, I just want to point out here that when you
really selling
that
Tressa.
Yeah, I just want to point out here that when you said that you spend 3K per turn on random encounters, that just made my heart sink because I'm just like, to me right now, that's so much money in the game. But yeah, Eric, I know you're pointing out Tressa. She's kind of pointing out something different here that, she picks up random money for every half a mile you walk. So that's kind of made me want to try that out. Maybe she'll kind of help me along so I don't have to do weird techniques to try to make money. But
I think that's essentially the exploit I'm talking about. You walk around in the dungeon and you go out and you collect the money.
Okay, because I thought because you were talking about making the encounter rate low. Okay, I figured this was just through the course of the game. Like you would just walk through the normal course of the game, and that you would just get like bucket loads of gold. But yeah, she's probably talking about something similar, if not the same thing. But yeah, I'll have to try that and let you all know next week. I mean, I do need some cash in that game because without her, it's a grind for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to experiment on it myself, and I'll let you guys know on my end how that works out.
Yeah, me and Eric might come back next week, millionaires, and Octopath Traveler money.
Mm-hmm. Grinding will be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I wonder if Square Enix will let us convert that to real money. I wonder if there's an exchange rate for that. I don't know, but
they go bankrupt.
Yeah, all of a sudden there would be a patch for Tressa immediately.
Square Enix goes out of business from one 13-year-old boy
with a lot of time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that about wraps up our comments this week. We got about an hour-long episode, so that's pretty good. But next week we will be back to our usual episodes where you'll have both our videos there and so forth. And we'll have lots of topics to talk about next week. But if you're listening to the audio-only version of this episode, we do have a YouTube channel. Just type in Phoenix Edge RPG Podcast, and we should pop right up. You can watch most of our episodes, 99.9% of them, and you'll see video of us talking. And it's we got a lot of comments on here. So if you want to ask a question or point something out that we said, just leave a comment on our YouTube videos and we will respond to it in the following episode. But we appreciate you all listening, and we'll catch you again next time. Take it easy, guys.
See you all.